My name is Isaiah Parker, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered my wife was screwing her ex-boyfriend in our bed while I was at work, and how I made them both pay for it in ways they never saw coming. But let me back up a bit. 3 months ago, I thought I had a decent life. I'm 40 years old, work as a project manager for a construction company in Cleveland, and I thought I was married to a woman who at least respected me enough not to humiliate me publicly. Shows what I knew. Scarlet and I had been married for 8 years. She's a real estate agent, or was until recently, and she always carried herself like she was doing everyone a favor just by existing. Blonde hair, fake tan, the kind of woman who posts gym selfies with captions like "living my best life." She came from money, old Cleveland money, and her mother never let me forget that Scarlet had married down when she chose me. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was sitting at our kitchen table going over project schedules when Scarlet walked in wearing a dress I'd never seen before. It was red, tight, and expensive looking. "I'm going to Cabo next week," she announced, not looking up from her phone. I glanced up from my paperwork. "For work?" "Sort of. It's a business retreat. Real estate networking." "Who's going?" She hesitated for just a second too long. "Some people from the office." "You don't know them." That's when she mentioned Vince would be there too. Vince Martinez, her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she supposedly hadn't spoken to in years until he'd moved back to Cleveland 6 months ago and opened a fitness studio downtown. Suddenly, he was everywhere. Her Facebook posts, her Instagram stories, her conversations. "Vince is going to a real estate networking event?" I asked. "He's thinking about getting into property investment," she said, still not looking at me. "It makes sense for him to learn about the market." I set down my pen. "Scarlet, you're going to Cabo with your ex-boyfriend." "Oh my God, Isaiah, it's not like that." "There will be other people there. Don't be so paranoid." But I could see it in her eyes, the guilt, the excitement, the way she was already mentally checked out of our conversation, probably thinking about him. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. "A few weeks. Look, I don't need your permission to take a business trip." "I didn't say you did." "I'm just trying to understand why you're going on vacation with a guy you used to sleep with." Her face went cold. "That was 15 years ago, Isaiah. Grow up." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'm going to Tiffany's. Don't wait up." Tiffany Chen was Scarlett's best friend and biggest enabler. Whenever Scarlet wanted to do something questionable, she'd run to Tiffany's house to get validation. Tiffany would tell her she deserved better, that she was too good for whatever situation she was in, and that she should follow her heart. It was like having a personal cheerleader for bad decisions. After Scarlet left, I sat alone in our kitchen, looking around at the life we'd built together. The house was mine. I'd bought it before we got married, but she'd redecorated everything. Gone were my comfortable, practical furnishings, replaced with expensive pieces that looked good but weren't meant for actual living. The whole place felt like a showroom. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and started really looking around for the first time in months. Scarlet's side of the closet was fuller than usual. New clothes, new shoes, new lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Her dresser had new perfumes, expensive makeup, jewelry I hadn't bought for her. In the bathroom, I found a second phone charger plugged in behind her makeup mirror. Scarlet only had one phone, her iPhone. So why did she need a second charger? I started paying attention after that. Really paying attention. The next morning, while Scarlet was in the shower, I heard her phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen lit up with notifications. 3 texts from Vince, 2 from Tiffany, and 1 from Mom. I couldn't read the messages without unlocking the phone, but I could see they were there. At 7 in the morning. When Scarlet came out of the bathroom, I was pretending to be asleep. "I'm showing houses all day," she said, getting dressed. "Don't know when I'll be back." After she left, I did something I'd never done before in our marriage. I followed her. She drove straight to Vince's gym. I parked across the street and watched through the front windows as she walked inside. She wasn't dressed for a workout. She was wearing a sundress and heels. Through the glass, I could see her talking to Vince at the front desk. He was exactly what you'd expect. Tall, muscular, the kind of guy who probably called women babe unironically. They talked for a few minutes, then disappeared into his office in the back. I sat in my truck for 2 hours. When Scarlet finally came out, her hair was messed up and she was adjusting her dress. Vince walked her to her car and kissed her goodbye. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, a real kiss. I followed her home and got there before she did. When she walked in, I was back at the kitchen table with my project schedules. "How was house hunting?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said. "Didn't sell anything. Market's tough right now." That night, I lay awake next to my wife and realized I was married to a stranger, not just because she was cheating, though that was bad enough, but because of how easily she lied to me. How naturally it came to her, like she'd been practicing. The next few days were a blur of small revelations. I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. The way she'd take her phone into the bathroom with her. How she'd gotten a new gym membership but never seemed to actually work out. The nights she'd come home late claiming she'd been with Tiffany but smelling like men's cologne. 3 days before her Cabo trip, I was taking out the trash when our neighbor Big Ed called me over to his fence. Ed Morrison was a retired Cleveland police detective who'd lived next door for 20 years. He was the kind of guy who noticed everything and forgot nothing. "Isaiah," he said, "we need to talk." "What's up, Ed?" He looked uncomfortable. "I don't like getting in people's business, but I've been seeing some things lately. That fitness guy has been coming around when you're at work." My stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "His car in your driveway. Twice this week, both times for a couple hours." Ed shook his head. "I'm sorry, son. I thought you should know." I thanked Ed and went back inside. Scarlet was upstairs packing for Cabo, humming to herself like she didn't have a care in the world. That's when I decided to find out exactly what I was dealing with. I went into the basement and got out my old toolbox. In the bottom, wrapped in an old rag, was something I'd bought years ago but never used. A small digital recorder I'd gotten for work meetings. It was voice-activated and could record for hours. The next morning, after Scarlet left for work, I placed it under our bed. When I got home that evening, Scarlet was in the kitchen making dinner. She seemed unusually cheerful. "How was your day?" she asked, not looking up from the stove. "Fine." "Yours?" "Great. Sold a house on Riverside Drive." Finally. I retrieved the recorder while she was cooking. In my home office, with the door locked, I plugged it into my computer and listened to 6 hours of audio. Most of it was nothing. House sounds, the TV, Scarlet on phone calls with clients. But at 2:17 p.m. I heard the front door open and close. Then Scarlet's voice. "Finally. I thought you'd never get here." A man's voice. Traffic was murder. "Come here." What followed was 43 minutes of my wife having sex with another man in our bed, in explicit detail. They talked between rounds, about me, about their relationship, about their plans. "He doesn't suspect anything," Scarlet said at one point. "What if he finds out?" Vince asked. "He won't. Isaiah's not the type to make waves. He'll just sulk and take it." "And after Cabo?" "After Cabo, we figure out our next move. Maybe it's time for me to upgrade." They laughed about that, about upgrading from me. I sat in my office until midnight, listening to that recording over and over. Not because I enjoyed torturing myself, but because I needed to understand exactly who I was married to. I needed to know how deep this went. By the time I went to bed, I had a plan. The next morning, Scarlet left for Cabo. She kissed me goodbye at the door like nothing had changed. "I'll miss you," she said. "I'll miss you too," I replied. And I meant it. I was going to miss the woman I thought I'd married. But that woman had never existed. As soon as her plane took off, I got to work. The first thing I did was change the locks. All of them, Front door, back door, garage, even the basement entrance. I called a locksmith and paid extra for same-day service. While he worked, I started phase 2 of my plan. I'd been thinking about this for weeks, ever since I'd confirmed what I already knew. Scarlet thought I was passive, that I'd just take whatever she dished out. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Our house was in my name only. I'd bought it 2 years before we got married, and when we tied the knot, I'd never added her to the deed. At the time, it seemed like a formality we could handle later. Now I was grateful for my procrastination. Legally, Scarlet had no claim to the house. She could live there as my spouse, but she had no ownership rights, which meant I could do whatever I wanted with the property and everything in it. I started with her clothes. Every single item in our shared closet went into garbage bags. The expensive dresses, the designer shoes, the jewelry I hadn't bought her, all of it. I wasn't stealing anything, I was just relocating it. I rented a storage unit across town and moved everything there. Her makeup, her perfumes, her books, her decorations, anything that was clearly hers. It took me 3 trips with my truck, but by Sunday evening the house looked like a bachelor pad again. Then I tackled the finances. We had separate checking accounts, but a shared savings account that we'd been putting money into for years. The account was in both our names, which meant either of us could withdraw funds without the other's permission. I cleaned it out, all $47,000, and moved it to a new account in my name only. I also canceled her credit cards, the ones where I was the primary account holder and she was an authorized user. I called each company and explained that I needed to remove the authorized user immediately due to fraudulent charges. It wasn't technically fraud, but it felt like it to me. By Monday morning, Scarlet's financial world had been quietly demolished. But I wasn't done. I drove to Vince's gym with a truck full of Scarlet's belongings. The place was called Vince's Fitness Studio, and it was exactly what you'd expect. Lots of mirrors, loud music, and guys grunting over weights they probably couldn't actually handle. Vince was at the front desk when I walked in, carrying the first box of Scarlet's stuff. Isaiah? He looked genuinely surprised to see me. What are you doing here? Returning some property, I said, setting the box on his desk. These belong to your girlfriend. His face went red. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. I went back to my truck and brought in another box. Scarlet left these at my house by mistake. Since you two are together now, I figured you'd want them back. Other people in the gym were starting to stare. Vince looked around nervously. Look, man, I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said, bringing in the third box. I know exactly what's going on. The question is, do you want the rest of her stuff, or should I donate it to Goodwill? I could see the calculation in his eyes. He wanted to deny everything, but he also didn't want me making a scene in his business. Fine, he said quietly. Leave it in the back office. Thanks. Oh, and Vince? I leaned across the desk so only he could hear me. Next time you want to screw my wife, maybe don't do it in my bed. The neighbors talk. I left him standing there with his mouth open and drove home feeling better than I had in weeks. That afternoon, I got a call from my friend Carl Rodriguez, who owned a bar downtown. Isaiah, what the hell is going on? Tiffany Chen just called me asking if I knew where you were. She sounded frantic. Scarlet's probably trying to reach me, I said. Her phone service got disconnected. That wasn't entirely true. I'd called our cell phone provider and removed her line from our family plan. Technically, her phone would still work on Wi-Fi, but she'd have no service for calls or texts. She's in Mexico, right? Carl asked. Yep. Having a great time, I'm sure. Dude, you sound weird. Are you okay? Carl had been my best friend since college. He knew about my marriage problems. I'd been venting to him for months about how distant Scarlet had become. But I hadn't told him about the cheating. Not yet. I'm fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. I'm finally seeing things clearly. That's ominous as hell, man. Want to grab a beer tonight? Talk about whatever's going on? Rain check. I've got some things to finish up. After I hung up, I sat down at my computer and opened Facebook. Scarlet had posted 3 photos from Cabo already. Her and Vince on the beach, her and Vince at dinner, her and Vince by the pool. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I screenshot all the photos and saved them to a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. Then I started working on my masterpiece. I created a new email account and began composing a message to Scarlet's boss, Patricia Williams, who ran the real estate office where Scarlet worked. "Dear Ms. Williams," I wrote, "I thought you should know that one of your agents, Scarlet Parker, has been using company time and resources to conduct a personal relationship with a client. I have evidence that she's been meeting with Vincent Martinez during business hours for non-professional purposes. She's currently on vacation with him in Mexico while claiming to be at a work-related conference. I thought you should be aware of this misuse of company time and resources." I attached the Facebook photos and sent the email from an anonymous account. Then I did the same thing with the State Real Estate Licensing Board, filing a complaint about unethical conduct between an agent and client. By the time I went to bed that night, I'd systematically dismantled every aspect of Scarlet's life in Cleveland. Her home, her finances, her job, and her reputation were all in jeopardy. And she had no idea. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Unknown number, probably international. I let it go to voicemail. The message was from Scarlet, and she was furious. "Isaiah, what the hell did you do? My cards aren't working, my phone isn't working, and Patricia just called me screaming about some email she got. Call me back right now." I deleted the voicemail and made myself breakfast. She called 17 more times that day. I didn't answer any of them. On Wednesday, I got a text from Tiffany. "Isaiah, Scarlet is trying to reach you. She's really upset. Please call her." I replied, "Tell her to call me when she gets back from her business trip." Tiffany responded immediately. "What business trip?" "She's in Cabo with Vince." "Exactly," I wrote back. Thursday morning, Big Ed knocked on my door. "Isaiah, I hate to bother you, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Scarlet called me last night. She was crying, asking if I had a spare key to your house. Said she was locked out." "What did you tell her?" "Told her I didn't have any keys to your place. But she seemed pretty desperate. Said she was flying home early and needed to get inside." "When?" "Tonight, I think." I thanked Ed and spent the day preparing for Scarlet's return. I set up my laptop in the living room with a clear view of the front door. I wanted to record her reaction when she realized what had happened. At 11:30 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Scarlet getting out of an Uber, dragging her suitcase behind her. She looked exhausted and angry. I turned on the camera and waited. She tried her key in the front door. It didn't work. She tried it again, jiggling the handle. Nothing. Then she started pounding on the door. "Isaiah! Isaiah, open the door! I know you're in there!" I didn't move. She walked around to the back door and tried that key too. When it didn't work, she started yelling, "This is my house too. You can't lock me out." She came back to the front and started pounding again, harder this time. "Open this door right now or I'm calling the police." That's when I opened the door. She looked terrible. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was smeared, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd probably traveled in. Behind her, I could see neighbors starting to turn on their lights. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she screamed. "Why did you change the locks?" "Because it's my house," I said calmly. "And you don't live here anymore." "What are you talking about?" "Of course I live here." "No, you live with Vince now. Remember? You two are upgrading." Her face went white. "You were listening to us." "Hard not to when you're screwing him in our bedroom." She tried to push past me into the house, but I blocked the doorway. "Move, Isaiah." "I need to get my things." "Your things are at the storage unit on Brook Park Road, Unit 247. Here's the key." I handed her a small key from my pocket. "Rent's paid through the end of the month." You can't do this. I already did. By now, several neighbors had come outside to see what the commotion was about. Big Ed was on his porch, watching. Mrs. Patterson from across the street was peering through her curtains. Even the college kids next door had opened their window. You're making a scene, I said quietly. Maybe you should go. This is my home. No, it's not. Your name isn't on the deed, the mortgage, or any of the utilities. You have no legal claim to this property. I'm your wife. You're also Vince's girlfriend. Pick a lane. She started crying then, big dramatic sobs that echoed through the neighborhood. Please, Isaiah. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. The only mistake, I said, was thinking I'd be stupid enough to let you humiliate me forever. I stepped back and closed the door, locking it behind me. She pounded on it for another 10 minutes before finally giving up. Through the window, I watched her drag her suitcase down the street, probably calling another Uber. I uploaded the video to my computer and went to bed. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. The next morning, I woke up to find 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from Scarlet, but some were from Tiffany, Monica, another one of Scarlet's enabler friends, and even Scarlet's mother, Mrs. Green. Mrs. Green's message was particularly charming. Isaiah, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but Scarlet is family. You will let her back into that house or there will be consequences. I screenshot the threat and added it to my evidence folder. The messages from Scarlet started apologetic and gradually became more desperate and angry. Isaiah, please call me back. We need to talk about this like adults. I know you're hurt, but this isn't the way to handle it. You can't just throw away 8 years of marriage. Fine, be a child. But I'm coming to get my stuff whether you like it or not. I talked to a lawyer. What you did is illegal. You can't just kick your wife out of her home. Answer your phone, you coward. I deleted all of them and drove to work. At the construction site, my boss, Mike Henderson, pulled me aside. Everything okay at home? You seem different lately. Just some personal stuff I'm working through, I said. Nothing that'll affect my work. Good. Because we've got that big project starting next month, and I need you focused. Mike was a good guy who'd given me a lot of opportunities over the years. I didn't want my personal drama affecting my professional life. You have my word, I said. Whatever's happening at home stays at home. But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't entirely true. My plan was just getting started. During my lunch break, I drove to the storage facility to check on Scarlet's unit. The manager, a friendly older woman named Janet, recognized me from when I'd rented the space. Your wife was here this morning, she said. Seemed pretty upset. Divorce, I said simply. It's messy. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I see it all the time. People storing stuff while they figure out their living situations. Did she take anything? Some clothes and personal items, left most of the furniture in boxes. That made sense. Scarlet was probably staying with Tiffany or Monica temporarily, and they wouldn't have room for all her stuff. Back at work, I spent the afternoon researching Ohio divorce law on my phone. What I found was encouraging. Ohio was a no-fault divorce state, which meant I didn't need to prove adultery to get divorced. But adultery could still affect things like alimony and property division. Since Scarlet had been cheating, and since I had evidence of it, any judge would be unlikely to award her spousal support. More importantly, since the house was in my name only and since we had no children, the divorce would be relatively straightforward. Scarlet might be entitled to half of our shared assets, but since I'd already moved those assets into my name only, she'd have to fight for them. And fighting meant going to court. Going to court meant making everything public. Something told me Scarlet wouldn't want her affair with Vince becoming part of the public record. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Parker, this is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates. I represent Scarlet Parker. She's asked me to contact you regarding the marital residence. A lawyer. Scarlet wasn't messing around. What about it? I asked. Mrs. Parker has a legal right to access the home she shares with you. By changing the locks and denying her entry, you're violating Ohio law. The house is in my name only, I said. I have every right to control access to my property. That's not entirely accurate. As your spouse, Mrs. Parker has certain rights. As my spouse, I interrupted, Mrs. Parker also has certain obligations, like fidelity. She's been violating those obligations for months. There was a pause. Mr. Parker, I think it would be beneficial for all parties if we could arrange a meeting to discuss this situation. I'll consider it, I said, and hung up. But I had no intention of meeting with Scarlet's lawyer. Not yet. I had more work to do first. That night, I created a fake Facebook account and joined several Cleveland neighborhood groups and real estate forums. Then, I started posting Scarlet's story. Does anyone know Scarlet Parker from Westside Realty? I was thinking about using her as my agent, but I heard some concerning things about her professionalism. Apparently, she's been having an affair with a client and using work time for personal relationships. Can anyone confirm this? I posted variations of this message in 5 different groups, always from different fake accounts, always asking innocent-sounding questions that planted seeds of doubt about Scarlet's professional conduct. Within hours, people were responding, some defending Scarlet, others sharing their own negative experiences with her, still others asking for more details about the alleged affair. Real estate was a reputation-based business. Once word got out that an agent was unethical, it spread quickly through the community. The next day, I escalated things with Vince. I drove to his gym during peak hours, around 6 p.m. when it was full of after-work clients. I walked in wearing my work clothes, jeans, boots, and a company t-shirt, looking like exactly what I was, a blue-collar guy who worked with his hands. Vince was training a client, some young woman who was clearly more interested in his muscles than his fitness advice. When he saw me, his face went pale. "Isaiah," he said, abandoning his client. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to thank you," I said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "for taking Scarlet off my hands." The gym got quieter as people started paying attention to our conversation. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "No trouble at all," I said. "In fact, I brought you a gift." I pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to him. Inside were printouts of all the Facebook photos from Cabo, along with a note that said, "Enjoy your prize. She's all yours now." Vince opened the envelope and his face went even paler. "You might want to get tested," I said conversationally. "She's been pretty busy lately. Hard to know where else she's been." That was a lie. As far as I knew, Scarlet had only been cheating with Vince, but I wanted to plant some doubt in his mind about the woman he'd stolen from me. "You're crazy," he said, but his voice shook. "Crazy like a fox," I replied. "By the way, how's business? I heard you might be looking for new premises soon." That was another lie, but Vince didn't know that. He looked around nervously at his clients, who were all pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. "I think you should leave," he said. "Absolutely." "Oh, and Vince? When Scarlet starts asking you for money, and she will, remember that she's got expensive tastes. Hope you've been saving up." I walked out, leaving him standing there with the envelope in his hands and a gym full of people staring at him. That night, I got a furious call from Scarlet. "What the hell did you say to Vince?" she screamed. "Just congratulated him on his new girlfriend," I said. "Why? Is there a problem?" "He's being weird now. Asking me all these questions about whether I've been with other people. Have you? That's not the point. You're trying to sabotage my relationship. I thought I was your relationship. You know what I mean? Actually, I don't. Are you dating Vince or married to me? Because you can't be both." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I want a divorce." "Great. Have your lawyer call me." "Fine." but I want half of everything. The house, the savings, all of it. Good luck with that. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should probably read up on Ohio adultery law before you start making demands. I hung up and poured myself a drink. Everything was going exactly according to plan. 2 days later, Scarlet's lawyer called again. Mr. Parker, this is Jennifer Walsh. I've reviewed the situation with my client, and we'd like to propose a settlement. I'm listening. Mrs. Parker is willing to forego any claim to the marital residence in exchange for half of the liquid assets and a modest monthly support payment. I almost laughed. How modest? $2,000 a month for 3 years. Counteroffer, I said. She gets nothing, and I don't file for divorce on grounds of adultery. Mr. Parker, that's not reasonable. What's not reasonable is your client thinking she can cheat on me for months and then profit from it. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. If you force this to go to trial, it will be expensive for both parties. I can afford it. Can she? There was a long pause. I'll discuss this with my client. After she hung up, I realized I needed to accelerate my timeline. Scarlet was getting desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. I needed to force her hand before she did something that would complicate my plan. That afternoon, I drove to Tiffany's house. Tiffany Chen lived in a trendy apartment complex in downtown Cleveland. She was a marketing manager for a tech company, single, and the kind of person who thought other people's drama was entertainment. I knocked on her door around 5 p.m., right when she'd be getting home from work. Isaiah? She looked surprised to see me. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you about Scarlet. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in. Tiffany's apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Modern furniture, motivational quotes on the walls, and a wine bar that looked like it got regular use. Want some coffee? She asked. Sure. While she made coffee, I looked around. There were photos of her and Scarlet everywhere, girls' trips, nights out, birthday parties. In most of them, they looked drunk and happy. So, Tiffany said, handing me a mug, this is awkward. It doesn't have to be. I just want to understand what's been going on. Isaiah, I can't get in the middle of this. Scarlet's my best friend. I know, and I'm not asking you to choose sides. I just want to know how long you've known about Vince. She looked uncomfortable. Known what about Vince? Come on, Tiffany. You knew she was cheating. You probably encouraged it. That's not fair. Isn't it? Every time Scarlet wanted to do something she shouldn't, she came here first. You're her conscience cleaner. Tiffany set down her coffee mug. Look, I knew she was unhappy. She felt like you two had grown apart. So she decided to grow apart with her ex-boyfriend. It wasn't supposed to happen. Vince reached out to her when he moved back to town, just as friends. But then they started talking more, and you told her to follow her heart. I told her to figure out what she wanted. And what she wanted was to have her cake and eat it too. Stay married to me for the financial security, but have fun with Vince on the side. Tiffany didn't deny it. How long? I asked. How long what? How long have they been sleeping together? She was quiet for a long moment. Since January. 4 months. They'd been having an affair for 4 months, and I'd been completely oblivious. Did you know she brought him to our house? Isaiah. Did you know? Yes, she said quietly. And you didn't think I had a right to know that my wife was fucking another man in my bed? It wasn't my place. Bullshit. You enabled this. You helped her lie to me. I stood up to leave. Isaiah, wait. She does care about you. This thing with Vince, it's just physical. She knows she made a mistake. The mistake wasn't sleeping with Vince, I said. The mistake was thinking I'd be too weak to do anything about it. I left Tiffany sitting in her apartment and drove home. That night I made a decision. I was done playing defense. It was time to go on offense. I called Carl and asked him to meet me at his bar. Carl's place was called Murphy's, even though Carl's last name was Rodriguez. He'd bought it from the previous owner and kept the name because it was easier than rebranding. It was the kind of neighborhood bar where everybody knew everybody, and the bartender remembered your drink. "You look like hell," Carl said when I walked in. "Feel like it too." He poured me a whiskey without asking what I wanted. "Want to talk about it?" I told him everything. The affair, the recording, the lockout, the lawyer, all of it. Carl listened without interrupting, occasionally refilling my glass. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Jesus, Isaiah, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be helpful. I need to know what people are saying." "About what?" "About Scarlet. About me. About this whole situation." Carl looked uncomfortable. "People are talking, yeah, but it's not what you think." "What do you mean?" "Scarlet's been making the rounds, telling her side of the story, making you out to be the bad guy." "What's she saying?" "That you're controlling, that you locked her out of her own home, that you're trying to steal all the money and leave her with nothing." I felt my anger rising. "And people believe her?" "Some do. She's good at playing the victim." "What about the cheating?" "She's not denying it exactly. But she's spinning it like it was your fault. Like you drove her to it by being emotionally distant." I finished my drink and asked for another. "There's more," Carl said. "What?" "She's planning something. Monica was in here last night, drunk and running her mouth. Said Scarlett's not going to just roll over and let you divorce her." "What kind of something?" "I don't know. But Monica kept talking about how you were going to regret messing with Scarlet." I thanked Carl and went home, but I couldn't sleep. If Scarlet was planning some kind of retaliation, I needed to be ready for it. The next morning, I installed security cameras around my house. Front door, back door, driveway, and living room. If Scarlet or Vince tried anything, I'd have it on video. I also opened a safe deposit box and put copies of all my evidence inside: the recording, the photos, the financial records, everything. If something happened to the originals, I'd still have backups. Finally, I called a divorce attorney of my own. David Kim was a family law specialist who'd been recommended by a guy at work. His office was in downtown Cleveland, and his reviews online were excellent. "Mr. Parker," he said after I'd explained the situation, "you've got a strong case. The adultery, combined with the fact that the house is in your name only, puts you in a very good position. What about her lawyer's threats? Empty. She has no legal right to live in a house that's not hers, especially after committing adultery. You're well within your rights to change the locks. And the financial stuff? That's trickier. If the savings account was in both names, she can argue she's entitled to half. But given the adultery, a judge might be sympathetic to your position. How long will this take? If she contests it, 6 months to a year. If she doesn't, we could have you divorced in 90 days. And if she tries to cause trouble in the meantime? Document everything. Keep records of all communication. And don't do anything that could be construed as harassment or intimidation." I left his office feeling more confident. I had the law on my side, evidence of Scarlett's adultery, and a good attorney. Whatever Scarlet was planning, I was ready for it. Or so I thought. That evening, I got a call from Big Ed. "Isaiah, you need to get over here. Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get over here." I walked next door to find Ed standing in his front yard with 2 Cleveland police officers. "Mr. Parker?" One of the officers, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, approached me. "We need to ask you some questions." "About what?" "Your wife filed a complaint alleging domestic violence and harassment." My blood went cold. "That's ridiculous. She says you've been threatening her, following her, and trying to intimidate her boyfriend. That's all lies. She also says you illegally locked her out of her home and stole money from her accounts." I looked at Big Ed, who shrugged apologetically. I told them what I saw, he said, that she was pounding on your door and making a scene. But they have to investigate. The officer pulled out a notebook. Mr. Parker, have you had any contact with your wife or Vincent Martinez in the past week? I thought about my visit to Vince's gym, my conversation with Tiffany, the changed locks. I've had minimal contact with my wife, I said carefully. We're getting divorced. What about Mr. Martinez? I returned some of my wife's belongings to him, that's all. She says you threatened him. I did no such thing. The officer made some notes. Mr. Parker, we're not arresting you at this time, but we need you to understand that any further contact with either Mrs. Parker or Mr. Martinez could be considered harassment. What about her contacting me? If she's harassing you, you can file your own complaint. After the police left, I sat on my porch with Big Ed. She's smart, he said, getting ahead of the story. What do you mean? Now, if you do anything to retaliate, it looks like you're escalating. She's painted herself as the victim. I realized Ed was right. Scarlet had outmaneuvered me. By filing a police report, she'd put me on the defensive and limited my options for revenge. But she'd also made one crucial mistake. She'd declared war. And I was just getting started. The police visit changed everything. Scarlet had escalated this from a private marital dispute to a public legal matter. She wanted to play hardball? Fine. I could play hardball too. The next morning, I called David Kim and told him about the police report. It's a common tactic, he said. Establishes a pattern of alleged abuse that she can reference in divorce proceedings. But it can backfire if you handle it correctly. How? File your own complaint. Harassment, trespassing, whatever applies. Force her to prove her allegations while documenting your own. Won't that just escalate things? Mr. Parker, she already escalated things. Now you need to protect yourself. I spent the morning at the police station filing my own report. Harassment, trespassing, and making false statements to police. I brought copies of my security camera footage showing Scarlet pounding on my door, photos of the damage she'd caused to my front door, and records of her threatening messages. The desk sergeant who took my report was the same young officer who'd questioned me the night before. Looks like you two are really going at it, he said. I'm just protecting myself. Word of advice? Get this sorted out in court before it gets worse. These domestic situations can spiral fast. I thanked him and left, but I knew he was right. This was spiraling, and I needed to end it before someone got hurt. That afternoon, I got a call from my boss, Mike. Isaiah, we need to talk. My office now. I drove to the construction company's headquarters wondering what this was about. Mike's office was on the second floor overlooking the equipment yard. Close the door, he said when I walked in. I sat down across from his desk. Mike looked uncomfortable. I got a call this morning, he said, from a woman claiming to be your wife. My stomach dropped. What did she say? That you've been violent with her, that she's afraid of you, that she wanted to warn me in case you became unstable at work. Mike, that's complete bullshit. I know it is. I've known you for 5 years, Isaiah. You're not a violent guy. But I had to ask. What did you tell her? I told her that personnel matters were confidential and that if she had concerns about criminal behavior, she should contact the police. Good. But here's the thing. She also asked about your salary, your benefits, your work schedule. Like she was fishing for information she could use against you. That made sense. If Scarlet was planning to fight the divorce, she'd need financial information to support her claims for alimony and asset division. I didn't tell her anything, Mike continued. But Isaiah, you need to get this handled. I can't have domestic drama affecting the job site. I understand. Good. Take whatever time you need to sort this out. Your job will be here when you're ready. I thanked Mike and left, but I was furious. Scarlet was now trying to sabotage my career on top of everything else. That evening, I decided to visit Monica. Monica Williams was Scarlet's other enabler friend. Where Tiffany was sneaky and manipulative, Monica was just dumb and loud. She worked at a salon in Lakewood and lived in a small apartment above a pizza shop. I found her at the salon around closing time, sweeping hair off the floor. "Isaiah?" She looked surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." "I don't think that's a good idea." 5 minutes, that's all." She looked around nervously, then let me in and locked the door behind me. "Monica, I know you've been helping Scarlet spread lies about me. I haven't. She called my boss today, tried to get me fired. That stops now." "Look, I'm just being a good friend." "No, you're being an accessory to harassment. And if it continues, I'll include you in my police complaint." Monica's eyes went wide. "You can't do that. Watch me. I've got lawyers, Monica. I've got evidence. And I've got nothing left to lose." She was quiet for a moment, then, "What do you want?" "I want to know what Scarlet's planning." "I can't." "She's going to drag you down with her if you're not careful." "Is her friendship worth your reputation? Your job?" Monica looked around the salon, at the life she'd built, the business she worked for. "She's desperate," she said finally. "The thing with Vince isn't working out." "What do you mean?" "He's pulling back, getting cold feet. I think your little visit to his gym spooked him." "Good. That had been the point." "What else?" "She's broke. Her boss put her on administrative leave pending an investigation. She can't afford a lawyer much longer." "So what's her plan?" Monica hesitated. "She thinks if she can prove you're unstable, dangerous, she can get a restraining order. Then she can claim the house is unsafe for you and get a judge to let her move back in." "How's she planning to prove I'm unstable?" "I don't know, but she's been talking about setting you up somehow, making you lose your temper in public." I thanked Monica and left, my mind racing. Scarlet was planning to provoke me into doing something stupid, then use my reaction against me in court. But knowing about the trap meant I could set one of my own. The next day I got a text from Scarlet. "We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's tonight at 8, Carl's Bar. Neutral territory, but also a place where I'd have witnesses to whatever happened." I showed up at 7:45 and positioned myself at the bar where I could see the entire room. Carl was working, and I'd already filled him in on what was happening. Scarlet walked in at exactly 8 p.m., wearing a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She looked good. She'd always been beautiful, but I could see the stress in her eyes. She sat down next to me at the bar. "Thank you for coming," she said. "What do you want, Scarlet?" "I want to end this. All of it. The lawyers, the police reports, the fighting." Carl brought her a wine without being asked. He knew her drink. "I'm listening," I said. "I know I hurt you. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this." "How?" "I'll end things with Vince. We can go to counseling. Start over." I studied her face. She seemed sincere, but I knew better than to trust her. "What about the police report?" I asked. "I'll withdraw it." "And the divorce?" "We don't have to get divorced. We can work through this." It was a good performance. If I hadn't known about her plan to set me up, I might have even believed her. "There's just one problem," I said. "What?" "I don't want to work through this. I want you out of my life." Her face changed. The fake sincerity disappeared, replaced by cold anger. "Fine," she said. "But I'm not going away quietly. I didn't expect you to. You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Actually, I do. Monica told me about your little plan." Scarlet went pale. "What plan?" "The one where you try to provoke me into losing my temper so you can claim I'm dangerous." She was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Monica always was a weak link. So was Tiffany. And Vince. "You're running out of allies, Scarlet." "I don't need allies. I just need a judge who believes that you're an abusive husband who stole his wife's money and locked her out of her home. Good luck proving that." "I don't have to prove it. I just have to make it seem plausible." She finished her wine and stood up. "This isn't over, Isaiah." "Yes, it is." She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "By the way," she said loud enough for the whole bar to hear, "I hope you enjoyed listening to that recording." Vince and I had a good laugh about it later. Then she was gone, leaving me sitting at the bar with a room full of people staring at me. Carl came over and refilled my drink. "She's good," he said quietly. "Not good enough." Because while Scarlet had been playing her little scene, I'd been recording the entire conversation on my phone. And now I had her admitting to the affair, threatening me, and acknowledging that she knew about the recording. Her lawyer was going to love that. But more importantly, I now knew exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. Scarlet wasn't just unfaithful. She was vindictive, manipulative, and willing to destroy anyone who got in her way, which meant I needed to destroy her first. The gloves were coming off. The final showdown began 3 days later with a phone call from David Kim. "Isaiah, we have a problem. Scarlett's lawyer filed an emergency motion for exclusive use of the marital residence." "On what grounds?" "She's claiming you're mentally unstable and potentially dangerous. They want a judge to order you out of your own house. That's insane." "Maybe, but they have affidavits from her friends supporting the claim, and the police report gives it some credibility." "When's the hearing?" "Tomorrow morning. We need to be ready." I spent the evening preparing for court, gathering all my evidence and documentation, but I also spent time preparing for something else, the nuclear option I'd been holding in reserve. The next morning, I met David at the courthouse. Scarlet was there with her lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, looking appropriately victimized in a conservative dress and minimal makeup. The hearing was in front of Judge Patricia Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd been on the bench for 20 years. "Ms. Walsh," the judge said, "your client is requesting exclusive use of the marital residence. Please state your grounds." "Your Honor, Mrs. Parker has been the victim of escalating harassment and intimidation by her husband. He's locked her out of her home, stolen her money, and made threats against her and her friends. She fears for her safety." "Mr. Kim?" David stood up. "Your Honor, Mr. Parker is the sole owner of the residence in question. Mrs. Parker's name is not on the deed or mortgage. She has no legal claim to the property. But she does have rights as a spouse," Judge Morrison said. "Normally, yes, but Mrs. Parker has been engaged in an adulterous relationship for months. She's forfeited any claim to marital rights or property." "That's a serious allegation. Do you have evidence?" David presented the recording, the photos, and Scarlett's own admission from the bar conversation. Judge Morrison listened to portions of the recording with obvious distaste. "Ms. Walsh, does your client deny these allegations?" Jennifer Walsh looked uncomfortable. "Your Honor, while there may have been some marital difficulties, that doesn't justify Mr. Parker's escalating behavior." "What escalating behavior?" "Mr. Parker changed the locks on his own house and moved his wife's belongings to storage. That's hardly unreasonable given the circumstances." "He's also been harassing her boyfriend." "You mean her paramour?" The judge interrupted coldly. "The man she was committing adultery with." I could see Scarlet getting agitated in her seat. This wasn't going the way she'd expected. "Your Honor," Jennifer Walsh tried again, "Mrs. Parker is afraid." "Mrs. Parker should have thought about that before she decided to cheat on her husband," Judge Morrison said. Motion denied. "Mr. Parker retains exclusive use of his property." Scarlet exploded. "This is bullshit," she screamed, jumping to her feet. "He's the one who's crazy. He's been stalking me and threatening people." "Mrs. Parker, sit down," the judge ordered. "No! This is my house, too. I've lived there for 8 years. "Bailiff," Judge Morrison called. But Scarlet wasn't done. She turned to me, her face twisted with rage. "You think you've won? You haven't won anything. I'll destroy you." I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of sick freak you are." The bailiff was moving toward her now, but she kept screaming, "You're nothing! You've always been nothing. That's why I had to find a real man." "Mrs. Parker, you're in contempt of court," Judge Morrison said. "I don't care. Fuck this court, and fuck him." The bailiff grabbed Scarlet's arm, but she shook him off and stormed toward the exit. At the door, she turned back one more time. "This isn't over, Isaiah. I'll make you pay for this." Then she was gone, leaving the courtroom in stunned silence. Judge Morrison looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "Mr. Parker, I'm going to issue a restraining order against your wife. She's clearly unstable and potentially dangerous." "Thank you, Your Honor. I'm also going to expedite your divorce proceedings. Based on what I've seen today, I don't think there's any chance of reconciliation." Outside the courthouse, David was practically giddy. "That was incredible," he said. "I've never seen someone destroy their own case so thoroughly." "What happens now?" "Now we file for divorce on grounds of adultery and get this finished as quickly as possible. After that performance, no judge in Ohio will award her a penny." But I knew it wasn't over. Scarlet's threats in the courtroom weren't just angry words. They were promises. She was going to try one more time to destroy me. I was ready for her. That evening, I got a call from Carl. "Isaiah, you need to get down here, now." "What's wrong?" "Scarlet's here. She's drunk, and she's got Vince with her. They're talking about going to your house." I grabbed my keys and drove to Murphy's as fast as I could. When I got there, I could see Scarlet and Vince at a table in the back corner. She was clearly intoxicated, gesturing wildly while she talked. Vince looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere else. I walked over to their table. "Scarlet." She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. Well, if it isn't the conquering hero. "You're drunk. Let me call you a cab." "I don't need your help." She stood up unsteadily. "I don't need anything from you." "Then what are you doing here?" "Celebrating. Celebrating my freedom from the worst mistake I ever made." Vince put his hand on her arm. "Scarlet, maybe we should go." "No," she shook him off. "I want to talk to my dear husband. I want to tell him exactly what I think of him." The bar was getting quiet as people started paying attention to our conversation. "You think you're so smart," she continued. "Think you've got everything figured out, but you don't know anything. I know enough." "Do you? Do you know that Vince and I were laughing about you the whole time? About how pathetic you are? About how easy it was to fool you?" I looked at Vince, who was staring at the table and refusing to meet my eyes. "Do you know that we used to make fun of the sounds you made when you were sleeping? That we'd joke about how clueless you were?" She was trying to hurt me, to provoke me into losing my temper in front of witnesses, but I'd been expecting this. "Are you done?" I asked calmly. "I'm just getting started. Do you want to know what else we laughed about? Your performance in bed, how boring you were, how Vince had to teach me what real pleasure felt like." People were definitely staring now. Carl was watching from behind the bar, ready to intervene if things got physical. "You're embarrassing yourself," I said. "I'm embarrassing myself?" "You're the one whose wife had to find satisfaction somewhere else because you couldn't provide it." She was getting louder, more animated. Other customers were pulling out their phones, probably recording the scene. "You want to know the truth, Isaiah? The truth is that I never loved you. I married you because I thought you had potential, but you're just a loser with a dead-end job and no ambition." That's when I smiled. "You're right, Scarlet. I am just a construction worker with no ambition, but I'm also the construction worker who owns your house, controls your money, and has video evidence of everything you just said." I held up my phone, showing her that I'd been recording. "What's more, I'm the construction worker who's been planning this conversation for weeks." Her face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you're drunk in public, making threats, and violating the restraining order that was issued against you this morning." "What restraining order?" "The one Judge Morrison signed after your little performance in court. The one that says you're not allowed to contact me or come within 500 feet of me." Scarlet looked around the bar, suddenly realizing that she'd walked into a trap. "You set me up." "You set yourself up. I just gave you the opportunity." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "I'd like to report a violation of a restraining order," I said when the operator answered. Scarlet tried to run, but she was too drunk to move quickly. Vince grabbed her arm, trying to help her toward the door, but it was too late. 2 police officers walked in just as they reached the exit. "Scarlet Parker?" one of them asked. "That's her," I said. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order." As they handcuffed her, Scarlet turned back to me one last time. "I hate you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but I don't care anymore." They led her out to the patrol car while everyone in the bar watched. Vince followed them outside, probably trying to figure out how to bail her out. Carl came over and sat down next to me. "Jesus, Isaiah." That was cold. That was justice. What happens now? Now she goes to jail, violates her bail conditions, and destroys what's left of her credibility. Her lawyer will probably drop her case, and the divorce will go through uncontested. And Vince? I looked out the window at Vince, who was standing next to the police car looking lost and confused. Vince gets to deal with the consequences of his choices, just like everyone else. 3 weeks later, I was a free man. Scarlet pled guilty to violating the restraining order and spent 10 days in jail. Her lawyer withdrew from the case, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized with Scarlet getting nothing: no money, no property, no alimony. Vince closed his gym and moved back to wherever he'd come from. Tiffany and Monica stopped speaking to me, but I considered that a blessing. I kept the house, kept my job, and kept my dignity. Most importantly, I learned something valuable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's letting people destroy themselves while you watch from a safe distance. As I sat on my porch that final evening, looking out at the neighborhood where I'd lived for so many years, I realized that for the first time in months, I was genuinely happy. The storm had passed, and it had washed all the garbage away.